of the Torah and the spreading of the idea of one God. I'm not a big scholar, but I know when the Jews crossed the Jordan, the first thing that God told them to do, I may be all wrong, but he said something about putting up 40 or 80 pillars and describing the words of the Torah so that this will spread through all the nations of the world.
But how do you spread those values? I agree with you.
Wait. And it was the writing of the book. If you know that the Bible is the most influential book in the world, it's been printed, the book printed with the Bible, and so the way you influence, and it's influenced the world, unbelievable. But Christianity, Islam,
let me interrupt you for half a second. Let me interrupt you for half a second. You will get no disagreement from me whatsoever. The only thing I'm suggesting is, when did the Bible take place? These wonderful, powerful stories. When we were a nation.
Oh, we were leaving the land of Egypt
as a nation,
but we didn't have a political
and then we came
state.
to.
But
what is the culmination of the Torah? What is Sefer Devarim? The culmination, and what is all of Tanakh? All of Tanakh is us as a nation here, and and you're 100% right that the words of the Bible, it changed the world. The mechanism, the means by which the words of the Bible spread to the entire world is through the Jewish people from our nation.
As they were a state, it spread all over the world through Christianity, through Islam, through communism. Almost all the most fundamental, whose purposes were tikkun olam, to make the world better. And no matter what you have against Christianity, even Islam, the alternatives before Islam were much worse than Islam. Islam.
I take that we should. You're absolutely right. I'm going to just pass the mic, but you're correct, sir. You're correct that it's a wonderful thing, and I think the world was not monotheistic, and Judaism, we can take great pride in the fact that half the world today is monotheistic. So we have more work to do, though. All right, we accomplished a tremendous amount, and now we have to accomplish even more.
I think you touched very well on the sayings of Rabbi Hillel. If you're only for yourself, what are you? And if you're not for yourself, you're nothing. And if you don't spread the word, then the community, then that's it. I think that's brilliant. I think you put it very well. And you're saying that as a community, we can go much further than keeping ourselves in isolation, and that the power of Israel is the power to influence because we're a nation. But one of the problems is that very few people are prepared to say, I am very proud to be Jewish, what would I be if I weren't? And how we can effectively influence many other people is only that way, by saying that there is something in Judaism that is remarkable, that has given rise to everything that is good in the world.
Okay. Let's take a couple of questions from people here.
Oh, no, yeah. Oh, here we go.
Yaakov Fogelman. I personally think that when we deal with Chazal and commentators, they're also people, and that you can't really understand them without knowing, if you can, a fair amount about their lives. Just a quick example or two, when you speak on the Rambam's extreme advocacy of Israel, mitzvahs don't count elsewhere and so forth, I think you have to consider his own Rebbe was a Satmar type, Yosef Sagino, who encouraged his pupils not to go near Israel because he believed the Shekhinah went with the Jews and God, one of the three versions of what happened. And so the Ramban was in effect by trying to sort of defend his own position. And you also have a certain negation of sensuality and so forth on the part of the Rambam. And if you look at Shasel Kabbalah, it was to the extent that both his father and his son really opposed marriage for the most part of people. So I simply think that that's why the Gemara tells stories about the rabbis, and so that we have an idea of where they're coming from when they say something. And you can even have it in the their people.
I should just talk about the Mets or something.
So I find the argument for caring about Israel for the non-affiliated American Jew to be really interesting, and I'm going to go home and think about it more. I'm wondering how you would respond to someone who says, Rabbi Pear, that's a really good point you make. You got to act through the prism of the nation state, but I live in America. I'm an American. So I'll run for city council. I'll, support my government here. America's it's a superpower. So how would you respond to someone who says, I don't need to do what you're saying through Israel. I can do it right here where I live in the United States of America?
Okay. Well, there's a couple of responses. First of all, of course, you can tell them they're right. Meaning, on the basic level of being able to have a bigger influence, if they were to create an ideal society, an American society, there's no doubt about it. The difference, of course, is that the values of Judaism that would underpin the society that we're trying to create are not always going to coincide with the values of the Americans that you'll be trying to create society with. Very often, Jewish values, when they leave a core Jewish area, become changed by the societies with which they're in. That we think we're spreading Jewish values, and it turns out that we're spreading someone else's values as well. So that's one thing. The second thing, of course, is not that they don't need us, but to tell them we need them. That if they have a certain amount of creativity and passion and energy, they can make a tremendous contribution through Israel, and that they'd be welcomed, and this is their heritage, that they'd be able to do it through that. I would say one other thing also, because I thought you might go in a different direction, which I realized I should mention. Everything I said doesn't for a second mean that the Israel that we have today is the mechanism to accomplish what we have to accomplish. I like Rav Benny Alon provided an analogy once that I think makes a lot of sense. He describes it of Yechezkel's vision of the dry bones. And the vision, if you remember it, is that the bones are scattered throughout the valley, and then little by little the bones come together and they form a skeleton. And then after they form a skeleton, they're filled with flesh. And he understands that the ingathering of the exiles, right, and when literally sometimes people came only with the bones, appears when they were coming from Europe, but that's the different bones coming together and forming the skeleton. In a sense, forming the infrastructure necessary to get to the next step. And that's what the ingathering of the exiles is. It's creating a skeleton, it's creating the infrastructure that you have a potential. Right? Many of the societies and the communities created outside of Israel and have been more successful than Jewish society in Israel. But they can only go so far in this vision. But we're creating sort of the infrastructure. Now, of course, we have to put the flesh on all these bones, and that's what the next stage of Zionism is. Right? Well, part of my purpose of writing the book is to redeem the word Zionism. And very often we think about Zionism as the national liberation movement of the Jewish people. And that's what sometimes people get upset over. It's all about nation. The way I understood it is, it's the liberation of the nation of the Jews. Meaning, we have this energy, it's called the nation energy, right? The ability to influence the entire world. And that's what Zionism is about, is to liberate the nation within us, to then be able to have a greater impact. So the first step is to liberate that we even have such a capacity. The next step, of course, is to fill it in with all of the flesh. Yeah. Okay, maybe we'll just take two more and then...